Hi folks, how are you doing? I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister in Altrincham and Urmston in the northwest of England. I hope you're finding the love in these difficult times. I hope you're seeing the blessings too in these challenging times. It is hard, my friends, but we are all in this together. No one can doubt that now. I'm offering these devotions as my part to offer a little hope, to offer some balm for our heart, our mind, our spirit and our soul in these difficult times. I hope they help. Today I'm going to look at circles, the circles of our lives. So I invite us just to still ourselves together now in silence. Let's invite a loving presence to be here amongst us and to awaken from deep, deep within us. I have lit the flame of freedom in this cup of acceptance, belonging, and love. So I invite you to come into this circle of love. Join in this sacred time and sacred space. Do not be tentative and bring your whole self. Bring the joy that makes your heart sing. Bring your kindness and your compassion. But also bring your sorrow and your pain, your brokenness and your disappointments. Bring your whole selves. All is welcome here. O Spirit of love and mystery, help us to recognize the spark of the divine that resides within each of us. May we know the joy of wholeness. May we know the joy of being together. If not in body, then in heart, mind, spirit and soul. Amen. There's a wonderful poem by Rainer Maria Rilke that's been singing in my heart and in my soul recently. It speaks powerfully to me of what the purpose of living in an engaged way is all about. It talks of the ever-widening circles that make up our lives. So here's Rilke's poem. I live my life in widening circles by Rainer Maria Rilke. I live my life in widening circles that reach out across the world. I may not complete this last one, but I give myself to it. I circle around God, around the primordial tower. I've been circling for thousands of years, and I still don't know. Am I a falcon, a storm, or a great song? Rilke's poem so beautifully evokes the image of ever-expanding spheres, much like ripples on a pond, those concentric circles. It brings to my heart the idea of moving from the centre of the circle and expanding and stretching ourselves to include ever more life. As we are expanded, we expose ourselves to new experiences and to new people. This is both exhilarating and frightening, all at the same time. As the journey continues, fear evaporates, and though the circles are never completed, certainly not the last circle anyway, but as we do so, one is compelled to give their whole life to the experience. This is the classic spiritual journey, I think, as it's not so much about the destination, the gift at the end. The gift is in the journey, in the ever-widening circles themselves. The beauty is not in the outcome where we reach some Ithaca, but the experience itself. Rilke's poem beautifully reminds me how great it is to live in such a way as this, to ever widen the circle so as to include more people, more ideas, more experiences, rather than to live in contracting spaces that seek to cut out what makes one feel uncomfortable. When we do so, our lives just get smaller and less fulfilling. Now, of course, due to having to be physically separate at the moment, the circles we live and breathe and experience our being in are having to change. We are having to adapt. But new technology is enabling more of us to connect in new, ever-widening circles, to let more into our experience, actually. Let's not just mourn the loss, but celebrate the new too, all that's even been gained in this difficult time. The circles are on my mind. Circles on my mind. I think that's a song, isn't it? In the eye of my mind, all the time. I know it sounds a bit strange, this, but I have noticed that circles and spheres have been cropping up in conversations everywhere I've been recently. I have heard talk of circles in the physical circles that until recently I moved in, as well as the ever-expanding social media ones too. I have lost count of the number of times in recent weeks I have heard the phrase circle of friends, and how society is made up of overlapping circles. I wonder how many times such phrases have been uttered by my own lips. I heard it several times as I chatted with friends over coffee the other week before social distancing began, as well as in another group that I'm part of. The people were talking about these different circles that they move in. Now, did I hear it because these things have been on my mind, or was I hearing them? And then that's what resulted in putting them on my mind. I don't know. I just keep hearing about circles. Am I creating the reality, or is the reality creating me? I don't know. The circles overlap, so it probably moves both ways. Who knows? Certainly not me. Our human lives are made up of circles. All life is made up of circles. Circles that are ever widening or decreasing, often overlapping. Now, the great 19th century transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson often spoke of circles. His essay, titled Circles, opened with the following words: "The eye is the first circle. The horizon which it forms is the second, and throughout nature this primary figure is repeated without end. It is the highest emblem in the cipher of the world." It continues, "Every action admits of being outdone. Our life is an apprenticeship to the truth, that around every circle another can be drawn, that there is no end in nature, but every end is a beginning, that there is always another dawn risen on mid-noon, and under every deep a lower deep opens." People don't speak like that these days, do they? What Emerson was suggesting is that all life is a series of ever-expanding circles, circles ever reaching out and encompassing more and more as more is revealed. I'm with Ralph Waldo. Certainly when I look at my life, I see that it is built on many circles that are forever stretching out. Now, I'm sure that there are many who will say that there must be a limit to these circles, that life on this sphere, the Earth, is the limit. Well, that was once the case. I'm not sure it's entirely true these days. We can actually, after all, blast off into space. And so that even the physical circles are not as limited as they once were. Even they're expanding now. As they say, the universe is ever expanding. And yes, we are physically limited at the moment, so we can't expand our physical circles. But this time will pass. We will be able to do so again. Now, when Emerson spoke of these ever-increasing circles, he was not talking of merely physical ones anyway. He saw this same limitlessness with regard to truth and understanding too. he saw God similarly also. He saw the divine as being beyond the circumference of these ever-expanding circles, but he also saw God at the core, at the centre of the circle, like a wheel, a hub of a wheel with spokes on the outside too. He described a kind of panentheism, not to be confused with pantheism. This panentheism is something I personally have a great deal of sympathy with. It makes sense to me, the idea that God somehow circles all life, the view that God is somehow more than all that is, and yet is also at the core, at the hub of all life and truth. God, if you like, is greater than all, and yet at the core of everything, present in everything. That power that is greater than all, and yet present in each. This is panentheism, I think. Yes, it is. So yeah, I agree. I think life is made up of circles, not just the material life too, and I suspect, and it's always been thus. But circles can also exclude, and they don't just include. In the poem Outwitted, Edwin Markham wrote this verse. He drew a circle that shut me out, heretic, a rebel, a thing to flout. But love and I had wit to win. We drew a circle that took him in. There's something in these words, I believe, that hints at what is at the core of my own Unitarian faith, and I've somehow found a home in. We are an open tradition that is ever expanding beyond the confines of human created division, whether those be religious or secular ones. When I look at the world, sadly, what I see are circles of exclusion and conflict being drawn up. Although surely the coronavirus pandemic has shown us that we are all in this one together. No one can deny that now. We draw circles of exclusion, but this virus excludes nobody. It draws us all in, sadly. We're all in this one together. But well, I can't do much about the virus. What can I do about the circles of exclusion? How do we draw circles that takes everyone in? Well, I think this is another challenge of our age, and maybe a challenge of my own tradition, I don't know. But I think it begins by understanding that at the core of everything is a love that we can all connect with, a love that is somehow greater than the circles that we create. It begins by seeing that there are no limits to the circumferences of life, and that there is no one to be excluded from the circle of love and of life. For love is eternal, love is perfect, and love knows no limits. So think about the circles that you are part of, the circles that you belong in. How can you widen those circles to include others? How do we include the whole human family in our circles of loving and belonging? Who do we keep out? How can we widen our circles to let them in? Amen. I'm going to end with a meditation followed by some final words of blessing. You know, we don't bless enough. We ought to bless more. Everyone can bless with their loving presence. Why not try offering blessings throughout the next day? See you can bless. See if you can widen that circle and bless more. And I'm going to end with a wonderful meditation titled Communion Circle by Mark Bellatini, a wonderful man, by the way. It comes from a beautiful collection of meditations titled Sonata for Voice and Silence. So I invite us once more just to settle ourselves while I offer some final words. Communion Circle by Mark L. Bellatini. The Earth, one planet, round, global, so that when you trace its shape with your finger, you end up where you started. It's one. It's whole. All the dotted lines we draw on our maps of this globe are just that, dotted lines. They smear easily. Oceans can be crossed. Even the desert can be crossed. The grain that grows on one side of the border tastes just as good as the grain on the other side. Moreover, bread made from rice is just as nourishing to the body and spirit as bread made from corn, or spelt, or teff, or wheat, or barley. There is no superior land, no chosen site, no divine destiny falling on any one nation who draws those dotted lines just so. There is only one earth we all share, we, the living, with all else that lives and does not live. Everything, everything for good or ill is part of the shared whole. Sky, earth, song, words, and now this silence. So as we return to our lives, inspired by this time in this circle, this communion, may we be inspired to open our hearts, our minds, our souls just a little wider. May we go forward in hope that our circles may grow ever wider, encompassing all that is life and all that is beyond life. May we move forward in love as a part of eternity. And may the love of God be with us all, in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Let us live in ever-widening circles. Amen.